You always know how to make me laugh.
I almost didn't go to the blind date. My sister had set it up, and I'd told her 100 times that I wasn't interested in meeting anyone right now. But she was relentless, and my mother had called me twice to guilt me about it, so I found myself walking into a small Italian restaurant on a Friday night with no idea what to expect. Her name was Olivia. She was already seated at a corner table, and when I approached, she looked up with an expression that suggested she was equally questioning this entire situation. "You must be Jordan," she said, standing to shake my hand. Her voice was careful, measured, like she was testing the waters. "That's me," I said, sitting across from her. "My sister has no boundaries. I assume someone in your life did the same." Olivia smiled, a real smile, not a polite one. "My best friend. She's been on a mission to get me dating again since." She paused, and I watched something shift in her expression, like she was choosing what to share. "Since a while ago." We made small talk through the appetizers. Olivia was a graphic designer. She loved her work. She had a cat named Toulouse. She'd grown up in the Midwest but moved to the city for college and never left. She was funny when she relaxed, though I could sense her holding something back, waiting for something. Dinner arrived, and so did the moment when the polite questions shifted into something deeper. "Can I ask you something personal?" Olivia said, setting down her fork. She was looking at me with an intensity that made me realize this conversation had been coming all evening. "Sure," I said. "Do you believe people can change? Like, really change? Or are they fundamentally who they are from the start?" I thought about it. I think people can heal. I think they can grow. I think they can make different choices. Whether that's changing depends on how you define it. Why? Olivia took a long sip of her wine. Her hands were shaking slightly. "Because I need to tell you something before this goes any further. And I need you to know it now, so you can decide if you're interested or not. Because it's not fair to let you get invested if you're going to run away when you find out." I set down my fork. My stomach was tight with anticipation and something else, a kind of readiness I didn't quite understand. "Okay," I said. "Tell me." "I was in a car accident 5 years ago. It wasn't my fault. Someone ran a red light and hit my side. I broke multiple ribs, fractured my pelvis, had severe scarring." She paused, gathering breath. "I spent months in physical therapy. The scars, they cover most of my torso. They're not pretty. And every guy I've met since then has made it clear that my body is something to work around or look past. One guy actually said," her voice cracked slightly, "he said he was man enough to look past the scars, like they were a deficiency he was choosing to tolerate." I felt something tighten in my chest. "No one wants to date me," Olivia continued, and her eyes were wet now. "Or rather, they want to date who I was before. They want me to hide my body or explain the scars like they're a problem that needs solving. And I'm tired of apologizing for surviving." There was silence at our table. Around us, the restaurant continued its ambient noise, forks clinking, conversations, laughter. But in our corner, it felt like we were in a bubble where only this moment existed. "Thank you for telling me," I said carefully. "That took courage." "Are you going to leave?" she asked, and she already looked braced for it, like she'd rehearsed my departure 100 times in her head. "No," I said. "But I want to understand. Not because I'm man enough to tolerate anything, but because I want to know you. Your scars are part of you. They're part of your story. And I'm not interested in dating a version of you. I'm interested in dating you." Olivia stared at me like I'd said something in a foreign language. "You don't have to say that," she said quietly. "You don't have to be nice about it." "I'm not being nice," I replied. "I'm being honest. And the honest truth is that I walked into this restaurant tonight expecting a mediocre dinner. I'm leaving, if you let me, with the possibility of getting to know someone real. Someone who's been broken and put herself back together. That's not something to hide. That's something to celebrate." Tears spilled over her cheeks. She quickly wiped them away, looking embarrassed. "Sorry," she said. "I didn't expect." "What didn't you expect?" "For someone to just Accept it. Accept me. Without making it weird or treating me like I'm damaged. You're not damaged, I said. You're resilient. We didn't leave the restaurant that night. We sat there long after we finished eating, nursing coffee and wine, talking about everything and nothing. Olivia told me about the accident, how she remembered the sound of the impact, how the recovery process had broken her in ways that had nothing to do with her physical injuries, how she'd spent months in therapy learning to accept her body, only to have that acceptance tested by every date she went on afterward. She told me about the guy who'd made the "man enough" comment, how he'd looked at her scars like they were unfortunate, how she'd realized that night that she was done apologizing for surviving something that wasn't her fault. After that, she said, I told my friend I was done dating. I was done with the looking and the explaining and the way men's eyes would shift when I took my shirt off. I was just done. Then why did you come tonight? I asked. Because my friend said she was setting me up with someone, and I said okay, but only if I could do something different this time. Only if I could be honest from the start about what they'd be getting into. I figured that if someone ran away, at least I'd know why they were running. That felt less ambiguous than the usual pattern. I'm not running, I said. And I meant it in a way that surprised me. We left the restaurant around 11, and I walked her to her apartment. At her door, she paused. Do you want to come in? She asked, and there was something vulnerable in the question that had nothing to do with sex and everything to do with intimacy. Yeah, I said. I do. Her apartment was warm and decorated with care, art prints on the walls, plants on every shelf, books stacked in careful towers. She poured us water and we sat on her couch, and that's when she did it. She pulled off her shirt. It wasn't sexual. It was declarative. She was standing in front of me in her bra, showing me the scars that had dictated so much of her experience since the accident. They covered her left side and wrapped around to her back, white lines that crisscrossed her beautiful, damaged, resilient skin. This is me, she said, and her voice was steady but tears were running down her face. This is my body. These are my scars. And if you're going to run, please do it now. I stood up and walked toward her. Slowly. I let her see my approach so she could stop me if she needed to. When I reached her, I put my hands on her waist, careful and gentle. I looked at her scars, and what I saw wasn't damage. I saw survival. I saw strength. I saw a woman who'd been broken and had the courage to put herself back together and stand here, vulnerable and terrified, refusing to hide anymore. I'm not going anywhere, I said. And I kissed her forehead, then her cheeks where the tears were, then finally her lips. When we pulled apart, she was shaking. Why? She asked. Why would you choose this? Choose me? When there are so many easier options. Because, I said, I'm not looking for easy. I'm looking for real. And you're the realest person I've met in years. We took it slowly after that first night. Olivia needed time to trust that I wasn't going to change my mind. That I wasn't going to wake up one day and realize her scars bothered me. That I wasn't secretly disgusted or put off. And I gave her that time because she deserved it. But I also showed her, through 1,000 small moments, that I wasn't going anywhere. When we were intimate, I kissed her scars. I showed her that her body, all of it, was beautiful to me. Not in spite of her trauma, but including it. Her scars were part of what made her who she was. We talked about trauma and resilience. About how her accident had shattered something in her, but she'd rebuilt it, brick by brick. About how she'd learned to love herself despite society's messages about what a body should look like. About how courageous that was. 6 months into dating, Olivia said something to me that I'll never forget. I spent 5 years thinking no one would want me because of these scars, she said, running her finger along one of the white lines on her side. But what I really needed to learn is that the right person wouldn't want me in spite of them. They'd want me because of everything I am, including the parts that are scarred. Exactly, I said. I think I'm falling in love with you, she said quietly. And it's terrifying because I'm used to people leaving. But I think I'm learning that not everyone will. No, I agreed. I won't. A year later, we moved in together. 2 years later, I proposed on the same corner table at the Italian restaurant where we'd had our first date. I got down on one knee, and Olivia said yes before I could even finish asking the question. Our wedding was beautiful and intimate. And in our wedding photos, Olivia wore a strapless dress that showed her scars. She'd made that choice deliberately, refusing to hide any part of herself on a day that was supposed to celebrate her. When people saw the photos and asked about the scars, she told them the truth. And more women than I expected reached out to her afterward, women who'd also been marked by trauma and had been made to feel like their bodies were something to apologize for. Olivia's visibility, her refusal to hide, gave them permission to stop apologizing too. Years later, I'd ask her what made the difference between me and the other men she'd dated. "You didn't love me despite my scars," she'd say. "You loved me including them. You made me feel like my survival wasn't something to work around or tolerate. It was something to honor." And that's when I knew that choosing to stay, in that first moment on her couch when she'd taken off her shirt and dared me to reject her, had been the most important choice I'd ever made. Because sometimes, the people who've been broken and put themselves back together are the strongest. Sometimes, resilience is the most beautiful thing a person can be. And sometimes, love means looking at someone's scars and not seeing damage. Seeing everything they survived to be standing in front of you. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe for more heartfelt tales, and drop a comment letting us know where you're listening from. We'd love to hear your thoughts and connect with you. Thanks for being part of the Unscripted Stories community.